When people picture danger in the ocean, they picture a shark, the fin, the teeth, the music. But here is the truth that might surprise you. Sharks kill only a handful of people each year, somewhere around 6 to 10 worldwide, and most of those are tragic accidents, not hunts. The creatures that should actually worry you are smaller, stranger, and far easier to step on, brush against, or never see at all. These are 10 ocean creatures more dangerous than sharks, and we are starting with a fish that at least looks the part. The barracuda has the reputation of an underwater knife, a long silver torpedo of a fish with a jaw full of jagged teeth. Growing up to nearly 2 meters, it is a fast, powerful ambush predator capable of explosive bursts of speed as it slashes into schools of smaller fish. Now, to be fair, barracuda attacks on humans are genuinely rare, and the fish is not interested in people as prey. The danger comes from a strange quirk. Barracuda are drawn to shiny, flashing objects, a watch, a piece of jewelry, a glinting fishing lure, which can look exactly like the flash of a fleeing fish. Mistaking a swimmer's bracelet for prey, a barracuda can strike in a single blurred lunge, inflicting deep, slashing lacerations that require serious medical attention. It is not malice. It is a case of catastrophically mistaken identity, and it is why divers learn to leave the jewelry on the boat. Lurking in the crevices of reefs and shipwrecks is the moray eel, an animal that looks like it swam out of a nightmare. Some species grow 3 meters long, and they spend much of their time wedged in dark holes, mouths opening and closing to breathe, revealing rows of needle-like teeth. What most people do not know is that a moray has a second set of jaws. Hidden in its throat is a smaller pair, which lunges forward to grip prey and drag it back, like a scene from a horror film. Moray bites usually happen when a diver reaches into a crevice or tries to feed one by hand. The bite is powerful and ragged, and the eel tends to hold on, tearing flesh as it thrashes. Worse, their mouths are full of bacteria, so even a bite that seems minor can turn into a severe infection. Some larger species also carry a toxin in their flesh, so eating the wrong moray can cause a serious form of poisoning, adding yet another way this animal can harm a person. It is a creature that punishes curiosity, and it has no interest in letting go. Now to something that does not look dangerous at all, because it barely looks alive. The crown-of-thorns starfish is a large, many-armed sea star, covered from tip to tip in long, sharp, venomous spines. It spends its life slowly devouring coral reefs, and when its population explodes, it can strip a reef bare, which makes it an ecological menace in its own right. For a human, the danger is contact. Brush against one or step on it while wading, and those spines drive into the skin and snap off, injecting venom as they go. The result is immediate, intense pain, followed by swelling, nausea, and sometimes vomiting that can last for hours. The broken spines are difficult to remove and can cause lingering infections and tissue damage. It is a reminder that in the ocean, even the things that seem to just sit there, motionless and harmless, can carry a serious sting. Our next creature is a master of the ambush, and you will almost never see it coming. The weaver fish is small, just a few centimeters long, and it spends its days buried in the sand of shallow coastal waters, with only its eyes and a row of venomous spines poking out. It is often ranked as the most venomous fish in European coastal waters, which is a shock to the many beachgoers who have never even heard its name. The danger is brutally simple. A swimmer or a barefoot wader steps down onto the buried fish, driving those dorsal spines straight into the sole of the foot. The venom causes pain described as far out of proportion to the tiny wound, a burning, throbbing agony that can last for hours and spread up the entire leg. The venom is broken down by heat, so the standard treatment is to plunge the foot into water as hot as the victim can stand, which is the only thing that reliably dulls the pain. It is rarely fatal, but for something you can meet on a family beach holiday, it is astonishingly nasty, and it is why lifeguards in some regions keep buckets of hot water on hand. The cruelest part is that most people never even knew the danger was there, hidden an inch under the sand where children paddle. Time for a quick break before the top 6. If this is making you rethink your next swim, consider subscribing. It genuinely helps the channel more than you would think. Now, back to the water, and it only gets worse from here. The flower urchin looks almost too beautiful to be dangerous, covered in delicate, flower-like structures in soft pink and white, which is exactly the trap. Those pretty blossoms are not spines. They are venomous, claw-like organs called pedicellariae, and they are the reason this animal is often called the most dangerous sea urchin in the world. When something brushes against it, hundreds of these tiny claws latch on, break off, and pump venom into the skin, continuing to release it even after contact ends. The result is described as excruciating, with intense pain, and in serious cases, symptoms like muscle weakness, disorientation, and breathing difficulty. There is a chilling historical account from a scientist who was stung on both hands and reported partial paralysis and a struggle to breathe. A creature that looks like an underwater bouquet turns out to be one you must never, ever touch. The lionfish is genuinely gorgeous, draped in flowing, zebra-striped fins that fan out like a lion's mane, which is precisely why so many people get too close. Those elegant fins conceal up to 18 needle-sharp, venomous spines. The lionfish is not aggressive and it will not chase you, but if you brush against or try to handle one, those spines deliver a venom that causes intense, throbbing pain, swelling, sweating, and in rare cases breathing difficulty and even temporary paralysis. For most healthy people, it is agonizing rather than deadly. But there is a bigger story here. Lionfish are a runaway invasive species in the Atlantic and Caribbean, where they have no natural predators, breeding explosively and devastating native fish populations. So the lionfish is dangerous on two fronts: a painful venom for the swimmer who touches it, and an ecological wrecking ball for the reefs it invades. At number 4 is an animal most people think of as gentle, and they are mostly right, which is what makes it so tragic when it goes wrong. The stingray is a placid, flattened relative of the shark that spends its time buried in the sand, feeding on shellfish. It only uses its weapon, a serrated, venomous barb at the base of its tail, in self-defense. The problem is that people wading in shallow water simply step on them without knowing, and the ray whips its tail up on reflex, driving that barb into flesh. For most victims, it strikes the leg or foot, excruciating but survivable. But the barb is a jagged spear, and if it pierces the chest or abdomen, it can be fatal, which is exactly what killed the conservationist Steve Irwin in 2006 when a ray's barb pierced his heart. Fatal stingray attacks are extraordinarily rare, only a handful ever recorded, but they show how a shy, harmless-seeming animal can kill under the wrong circumstances. This is why people who know these waters do the stingray shuffle, sliding their feet along the sand instead of stepping down, so any hidden ray feels them coming and glides away rather than striking. It is a simple habit that has saved countless swimmers from a barb they never saw. The Portuguese man-o'-war drifts across the surface of the ocean like a beautiful, translucent blue balloon, and it is one of the strangest animals alive. It is not even a single creature. It is a siphonophore, a colony of specialized organisms living and functioning as one, none of which could survive alone. Trailing beneath that gas-filled float are tentacles that can stretch an astonishing 30 meters, each one lined with venom-filled stinging cells. Contact leaves long, whip-like welts of searing pain, and the tentacles keep stinging even after the animal is dead and washed up on a beach. While deaths are rare, severe stings can cause fever, shock, and dangerous effects on the heart and lungs, and the sheer length of those tentacles means a swimmer can be stung without ever seeing what hit them. And rubbing the wound, or rinsing it with fresh water, can actually make things worse by triggering the stinging cells to fire even more venom. Whole beaches are closed when these creatures drift in, because there is simply no way to swim safely around 30-meter tentacles you cannot see. At number 2, the beaked sea snake, proof that the ocean has its own version of the world's deadliest snakes. There are more than 60 species of venomous sea snake, and most are docile. But this one carries venom estimated to be several times more toxic than a cobra's. It patrols the warm coastal waters off India, Southeast Asia, and northern Australia, and it is responsible for a large share of the world's sea snake bites, often striking fishermen who haul them up by accident in their nets. The venom attacks both the muscles and the nervous system, and it can paralyze the diaphragm, stopping a victim's breathing. A tiny amount is enough to kill a person. The saving grace is temperament. Sea snakes are generally reluctant to bite humans and often deliver dry, venomless warning bites. But make no mistake, when a beaked sea snake does inject venom, it is one of the most dangerous bites in the entire ocean. And the most dangerous creature in the sea is one you could barely see, even if you were looking for it. The irukandji jellyfish is roughly the size of a thumbnail, a transparent little box jellyfish drifting in the warm waters off northern Australia and beyond. The initial sting is so mild that many victims barely notice it. And then, 20 to 40 minutes later, comes something called irukandji syndrome. Waves of excruciating pain crash through the body, along with vomiting, a pounding heart, soaring blood pressure, and a symptom so distinctive it has a name, a genuine, overwhelming sense of impending doom. In severe cases, it can cause bleeding in the brain and life-threatening effects on the heart. For years, doctors could not even work out what was causing the syndrome because the culprit was too small and too clear to spot in the water. The mystery was finally solved in 1961 when a scientist named Jack Barnes, determined to prove his theory, deliberately stung himself, his own young son, and a lifeguard with the tiny jellyfish. All three ended up in hospital, which was exactly the grim confirmation he was looking for. And here is the reframe that ties this whole list together. Jellyfish, these tiny, brainless drifters, kill far more people every year than sharks do, by some estimates, many times more. The monster of the ocean was never the thing with the fin. It was the thing you could hold in the palm of your hand and never even feel. So the next time you are standing at the edge of the sea, remember that the real dangers are rarely the ones with teeth. They are small, quiet, often invisible, and they ask only that you watch where you step and what you touch. Sharks make the headlines, but the ocean's true killers work in silence. Of course, there are other dangerous sea creatures I could have included, and I am sure some of you thought of one. So tell me in the comments which of these surprised you the most. Thank you for watching. and I will see you next time.